Hey, what's up, everybody? Mike Norman coming to you from the epicenter of the U.S. coronavirus pandemic right here in New York City. I think I'm going to wear this from now on my videos until this whole thing blows over, because I think it would be good for posterity. We could go back a year from now, 2 years from now, we can go back and watch these videos, and this will be symbolic of this unprecedented time that we are going through. So what is going on? You know what I want to talk about today, and this came up, let me take this off, actually I can't take it. This came up in an email. I think it is important as investors, when looking at markets, it is important sometimes to separate markets from societies. Now, of course, they are interlinked. I am not saying they're not. But markets are markets, societies are societies. And the reason I mention this is because we know that the current situation with the pandemic is very, very serious. People are getting infected at an exponential rate. Actually, there was something that I saw here in New York City which was shocking, which was the local news showed one of our hospitals here with a line of people, 3-hour wait outside this line, twisting around the block, going blocks and blocks and blocks, 3-hour wait of people trying to get into the emergency room of this one particular hospital. Now, for sure, I think a lot of people are probably overreacting. Some people may have an ordinary common cold. Others may have some other symptoms which they are, of the belief that maybe they have the virus. But the point is, and we all know this, it is creating a societal panic. You see this in what is going on. But then there is the real situation of people becoming infected by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. I think the death toll here is now in the United States over 800 or something like that. It's going up by hundreds per day. So that is the societal situation right now. And it is not under control. It is growing, the spread of the virus is growing exponentially. The impact it is having on the economy, on people's livelihoods, on businesses, all that has been well reported, and we know about that. Then there are the markets. The markets, that's a whole different breed. That's a whole different environment. When you operate in the markets as traders, as investors, you have to understand that the markets tend to be, not always, but they tend to be discounting mechanisms in the sense that they reflect investors' expectations, outlooks, forecasts, etc. Now, obviously, those expectations, outlooks, forecasts are not always correct, and that's why I tend to be more of a contrarian. But nevertheless, markets move in large part, at least in the short term. In the long term, they move based on fundamentals. As I've always said, they move based on basic underlying economic conditions. That's over the long term. But in the short term, and we could be talking about months, we could be talking about weeks, we could even be talking about years in some cases. They move on emotion, they move on expectation, they move on forecast. So now we have a situation, and what makes this difficult is because you have the juxtaposition of two things. One is what's happening in society with this terrible pandemic that is going on, and the news is terrible, and we see people lined up around the block, at least here in New York City, trying to get into an emergency. It's scary. We see people run into the supermarkets, clearing shelves out of goods, and who knows? And we lockdowns. So we see that happening. And of course, it's normal to extrapolate that and say, well, that's just getting worse. We don't see any peak in the situation. It is continuing to spread, and the consequences may be dire. And when you look at that, the societal situation, you say there is no way that the stock market can bounce. It's going to continue to go down and down and down. But as a trader, as an investor, and having been involved with markets for 40 years, I understand that there has been a degree of reaction to the societal situation and the economic situation so far. And that reaction has been, by all historical measures, very, very severe. I mean, I think some of the numbers equate to what we saw in 1929 and 1930. The magnitude and the rapidity of the decline. There have been, analogies that place it along those lines from the Great Depression. So given this, now I'm not downplaying at all what's happening in the economy and what's happening in the society. Don't get me wrong, and don't tell me I'm trying to poo-poo that or downplay that in any way. I'm not. I mean, I'm stressed out. Believe me. I mean, look, I'm walking around like this all day long. I'm literally walking, I'm not a fearful person. All right? I mean, I grew up in these streets in New York. Believe me. Not a lot scares me. I saw crazy times here. And I could do 100 videos on those crazy times. But it is stressful and it is scary. I'm not downplaying that. All I'm saying is that we have had a tsunami, an earthquake, whatever you want to call it, a volcanic eruption in the markets that has, I think, to a certain extent, can I use that term, a certain extent, a large extent, discounted the situation up until now. Now, going forward, things might deteriorate even further. But I see right now a couple of things. I see, extraordinarily extreme pessimism and fear. That's obvious. I just spoke about that, right? I see some stocks, many stocks, not some stocks, beaten down to levels that would represent, or I think that represent, almost once in a lifetime buying opportunities. I see a response by monetary authorities, the Federal Reserve and other central banks, equal or greater, as a matter of fact, greater than the response we saw in the 2008-2009 great financial crisis. And you know me, I say a lot of that is detrimental. I mean, all this asset buying that strips income out of the economy, but I think that plays out over a longer term. I think the immediate term of supplying all that liquidity stops for now the panic, at least in financial markets, lends support. You don't have the freeze up that we had in 2008 after Lehman went down. And then we have, and I want to talk about this for a second, the fiscal stimulus, which was agreed upon last night, but now looks like it may be in trouble. That's a problem. So we were buying, my people were buying the market yesterday, when it went down. I said, you got to buy that. We ended up with the biggest up day ever in history. This morning, I sent out to subscribers because the market originally was strong overnight. We came in this morning, it dipped. It took a big dive, and I said, buy that dip. And we ended up, we were up at one point almost 1,200 points, and then we closed up 500. The end of the day, I understand, because the stimulus bill started to be called into question. But I think we're putting in a bottom here based on those things I just talked about. You have the economic and societal situation going on, which is very severe and very dire. But you have markets that have discounted, I think, that's my personal view, a large part of the negative impact that we are about to feel. And again, that negative impact may grow and grow and grow over time, and it likely will. I don't know, because I don't think this stimulus bill, even if it passes, it might not be enough. But for now, let me just say one last thing. If this stimulus bill now falls apart, which, with these guys in Congress, anything is possible. Believe me, if this thing falls apart now, we do a retest of the lows that we have seen so far. And I think I'm still a buyer down there for the reasons I mentioned before. All right, everybody, remember, I am here in the epicenter. Let me put this back on. I don't know, should I do the whole video from now on with the mask? I took it off, but I think I should really stick to it and do the whole video with the mask until this thing is over. Leave your comments in the comment area below. Let me know if I should do the whole video with the mask. In the meantime, I had a lot of people, Mike, you helped me so much. Mental game. I made all this money thanks to you. I saved my money. It wasn't decimated thanks to you. MMT Trader, go to my website, sign up for a 30-day free trial of MMT Trader. Do it now. Let me know if I should keep the mask on.